This past summer's free agency was a pretty crazy time for the NHL. You had a lot of big name players signing with new teams, Panarin, Matt Duchene, and at the time, a lot of people like to give their opinions on the contracts. But we truly don't know if it's a good or bad contract until the player actually plays with the team, and now we're a pretty good ways into the 2019-20 season. So I want to talk about the 5 best and worst contracts from 2019 NHL free agency. So technically I'm going to talk about 10 players in this video. Now before we get into today's video, I want to give a shout out to Wilson Tsai, who is an NBA YouTuber. I watch a lot of his videos and he kind of inspired me to make this one because he did a similar thing with the NBA and it really got me thinking about this past free agency class in the NHL. And as always, if you guys are new and have been enjoying the content, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Starting the video off with a good contract, and I'm going to go with Robin Lehner and his 1-year $5 million deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, coming off of an amazing season with the New York Islanders, a lot of people, including myself, figured he would probably just re-sign with the team, but something must have happened there, and he settled for a 1-year $5 million deal with the Hawks, and he's been fantastic for them so far this season. In 14 games, Lehner has a record of 5-5-3, and yeah, that's not obviously an amazing record, but you got to take into consideration that Chicago isn't really the greatest team, and Lehner's individual stats have actually been pretty good so far this season, as he has a 2.69 goals against and a 929 save percentage, which is one of the best in the NHL. And Lehner is going to be a UFA again next summer, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, but you gotta think someone wants to lock him up long term, as he's still only 28. Moving on now to a not so good contract, and that is Cam Talbot's 1-year $2.75 million deal with the Flames. Now yeah, the team in general hasn't been the greatest this season, but you look at David Riddick's numbers and he's playing okay. But so far this season, in just 7 games, Cam Talbot has a record of 1-5, a .893 save percentage, and a 3.23 goals against. He's not really doing the team any favors when he's in net. And it was pretty strange how this worked out. Obviously last season Cam Talbot was on the Edmonton Oilers and Mike Smith was on the Flames, and fast forward to this season, they swapped goaltenders, and you gotta look back at that and think Edmonton definitely got the better end of that goalie swap because Mike Smith's been pretty good for them this season. The next good contract I want to talk about is Kevin Shattenkirk's 1-year $1.75 million deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now he was bought out of the remainder of his contract with the New York Rangers, thus making him a unrestricted free agent, and the Tampa Bay Lightning jumped all over this, and he has actually been very good for them so far this season. Through the first 25 games, Kevin Shattenkirk has 5 goals and 15 assists for 20 points and is a +11. And when you take a look at him last season with the Rangers, in 73 games he had 2 goals and 26 assists for 28 points and was a -15, but there wasn't really anyone in New York last season that you could pair him up with who could kind of make up for his defensive liabilities. But in Tampa Bay, they have multiple defenders that you can pair him with, then it kind of lets Kevin Shattenkirk run free offensively, and so far this season he's really been thriving. And for $1.75 million, Tampa Bay definitely got a bargain of a deal for the way he's been playing. Moving on now to the next not so good contract, and that is Tyler Myers' 5-year $6 million annual average deal with the Vancouver Canucks. Now Tyler Myers hasn't been awful for the Vancouver Canucks. I actually think he has been a solid piece of the team and a very good veteran presence to have on that blue line that has such a young defenseman in Quinn Hughes. So far this season in 29 games, Myers has 0 goals and 4 assists for 4 points and is a -2, but Tyler Myers' game has never been to put up a ridiculous amount of points. But still, for the money that he's making and the turn that they gave him, you definitely could use a little bit more offensive production from him. So again, I don't really think he's been bad for the Vancouver Canucks by any means, but I definitely don't really think he's worth the contract that he was given, or not really playing up to par with it so far. Getting back to the good contracts, let's talk about Brett Connolly. He signed a 4-year $3.5 million annual average deal with the Florida Panthers this summer, and he's been very good for them so far this season with already 12 goals in 27 games, and is definitely on pace to shatter his career high in goals, which was 22 last season. He is getting a great opportunity to play in the top 6 and has kind of been an underrated piece to that team so far this season. Florida made a lot of big moves this summer. They brought in Anton Stralman, they brought in Sergei Bobrovsky, Nola Chari, but you could definitely argue that Brett Connolly has had the biggest impact so far out of any of those guys, including Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, it will be interesting to see if Brett Connolly keeps this up, but if he stays in the top 6 playing with the talented players that they have, I see no reason why Brett Connolly can't score 30 goals this season for the first time in his career. And it's not like this is just a 1 or 2 year deal either. I mean, he's locked up in Florida for the next 4 years, and if he can continue to score at this rate over the course of this contract, it is an absolute bargain for Florida. Moving on now to the next bad contract, I want to talk about Richard Panik and his 4-year, $2.75 million deal with the Washington Capitals. Now, he's kind of been doing the opposite of what Brett Connolly has been doing for the Florida Panthers. I feel like Washington brought him in so he could maybe score like 15 to 20 goals and be like a 35 to 40 point player. But so far this season, in just 20 games, Panik has 2 goals and 0 assists for 2 total points, so he's on pace to score around 8 goals this season. But it's not like this is, one of the worst contracts in the NHL, because Washington doesn't have too much money tied up in Panik because he is only making $2.75 million per year, but it's not like it's just a 1 or 2 year deal. He's signed to this deal for the next 4 seasons. And if he continues to score at like an 8 goals a season rate, which I don't think he will, he definitely can bounce back from that, but if he does, then this will definitely be looked at as a failed signing by the Capitals because they brought him in for some scoring depth, and so far he hasn't really done that. Now, getting to another signing that looks great right now, let's talk about Semyon Varlamov and his 4-year deal with an annual average of $5 million per season that he signed with the Islanders. Now, I don't know who the goaltending coach or the goaltending coaches are for the New York Islanders, but I can say that over the past 2 years, they have done an amazing job. You look at when they brought in Lehner, who was a goaltender that was struggling on and off the ice. He came in, had an amazing year, Vezina Trophy candidate, but then unfortunately he left in free agency and they signed Varlamov, and I personally thought he was going to be a bit of a downgrade over Lehner, or he wouldn't have as good of a season, but Semyon Varlamov has been great for them so far this season in a tandem with Thomas Greiss. In Varlamov's 15 games, he has a record of 8-3-2, a 2.38 goals against average, and a 922 save percentage. Like I mentioned earlier, when this was first signed, I was a little bit skeptical about it. Varlamov has kind of been up and down over the past 5 years of his career, and 4 years is pretty lengthy for $5 million per, but so far this season, he's looked fantastic, and the contract looks just fine for the Islanders. The next not so good signing I want to talk about is Matt Zuccarello. He signed a 5-year deal with the Wild with an annual average of $6 million, and at the time he signed this contract, I didn't think he was a bad player by any means. Yeah, probably still a little bit of an overpayment, but it was more so, why are the Wild signing a 32-year-old to a 5-year deal? This is a team that, in my opinion, should be heading in a full-fledged rebuilding direction. They don't really have too many top-notch prospects, and I think if they were to get a top 3 pick in this up-and-coming draft, that could be the best thing that could happen to the team. So far this season, in 24 games, Zuccarello has 5 goals and 8 assists for 13 points, is a -6, and like I said, those aren't bad numbers, and he's not a bad player by any means. I'm just not quite sure why they signed him. I think he could be a lot useful somewhere else. But yeah, even in rebuilds, you do need these veteran players around, but $6 million for the next 5 years, I feel like in a couple years, this could be looked at as one of the worst contracts in the league. Minnesota Wild are 7-0-3 in their last 10 games though, so maybe they can start to string some wins together and make a push for the playoffs. Next up, the final good signing we're going to talk about in this video, and that is Joonas Donskoy and him signing a 4-year deal with an annual average of $3.9 million with the Colorado Avalanche, and so far this season, he's done exactly what they brought him in to do. Provide some depth scoring behind guys like McKinnon, Rantanen, and Gabe Landeskog, and while Landeskog and Rantanen were down, Joonas Donskoy stepped up in a big way, and he's just been very good for them all season long. In 27 games, he already has 12 goals, which is just 2 off his career high of 14, and 11 assists for 23 points. This is a guy who definitely could be like a 30 goal scorer and like a 65 to 70 point player, and that would be huge for a team that really struggled with their depth scoring over the past couple of years. They also brought in guys like Kadri and Burakovsky to help in that area, but out of the 3, I think Joonas Donskoy has arguably been the best. And if he continues to play like this over the course of the 4-year contract, that $3.9 million cap hit is an absolute bargain. And now finishing out the video with the signing that doesn't look the best right now, and that is Jake Gardner and his contract of 4 years with an annual average of $4.05 million that he signed with the Hurricanes in the summer. Now, Jake Gardner is a good offensive defenseman, but he's not really the strongest in his own end, and so far this season he hasn't really been putting up the greatest offensive numbers with just 6 points in 28 games. And when he's not putting up big offensive numbers, how valuable is he really to a team? He is a minus 18 right now for a Carolina team that is pretty good. And honestly, I think they would have just been better off if they didn't sign him and maybe let a guy like Jake Bean try to crack the roster or give Hayden Fleury some more minutes, because they already had a stacked decor even after trading away Justin Falk. Obviously, a very long season and plenty of time for Jake Gardner to turn it around, but the contract just doesn't look the greatest right now for Carolina. So that is going to do it for today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section below what are some other signings from the 2019 free agency class that you think are really good, or ones that you think are not so good. And with all that being said, thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel lately. I really do appreciate it, and make sure to go down in the description, and if you're a basketball fan, subscribe to Wilson because he did inspire me to make this video. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.